Hey BookTube, welcome back. I'm Winx, and the ink I'm talking about today is pet grief. Those of you who know me and those of you who follow me on Twitter or Instagram might already know, but my kitty Dargo passed away this last Thursday. He was definitely an older kitty. Even when I adopted him, he was old. The shelter estimated at the time that he was about 8. But actually, after seeing how his health changed and how he modified some of his behaviors just over the past couple years, we think that he was probably closer to 10 or 11. And assuming that was the case, he lived to a ripe old age of 15 or 16. So he definitely lived a full life. So today I want to talk about a few things. One is a book and two are book related, that are just things that have helped me a lot over the past few days with grieving and processing. The first book I want to talk about was actually given to me from the folks at Dove Lewis. They have a really great pet loss support program there. This book is actually part of their program. It's called My Pet Remembrance Journal, and it's by, I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, but Enid Treisman. She is actually the founder of the Pet Loss Support Program at Dove Lewis. Goodreads described this as a grief workbook and keepsake journal, and I think that that is really the best way to sum it up. The first half of the book is definitely easier. It's more about your memories and the routines you guys had, the funny stories that you accumulated. All of the prompts are set up in a way that makes you automatically start writing to your pet. One of them is, how you let me know what you wanted. So right away you start saying, you did this, you did that. Suddenly Dargo can understand English fluently, and now I can go back and I can explain to him how our story went for me and how I think it went for him. And there's something just really comforting and healing in that. The second half of this book is definitely the difficult half. The last 6 chapters include medical history, the end of your life, disposition of your remains, the labor of mourning, grieving in a healthy way, and my goodbye letter. I have actually only completed the book up through chapter 8, which was the end of your life. The majority of the second half I'm still working on. A lot of it I just don't have the answer to yet. I know I'll get more benefit out of it if I wait to do it, or I'm just not ready to do it, but I definitely plan on finishing this. I'm going to keep working on it until it's done and until I feel like I have processed all the things I need to process, and it's going to be a really great keepsake years down the line to be able to look back and see our stories. One last thing that I really liked about this journal is that at the end of every chapter there are blank pages, so you can put photos or drawings or clippings of documents, but I realized pretty quickly that a couple blank pages at the end of the chapter was not going to be enough for me, so I actually got a manila envelope for every chapter and filled it with all the pictures that I felt were needed. And then I took all the pictures that I went through for that chapter and I wrote on the back, and I wrote it to Dargo again. Working on this journal has been a really great and healing process for me. I cannot recommend it highly enough. If you are grieving the loss of a pet or know someone that is, this has been invaluable to me in my grieving process, and it's really been a healing experience to fill out. So please pick it up if you or anyone you know is grieving for a pet. The next 2 things that I want to talk about are happier things, and they're both book/writing related and things that I made myself a few years ago. The first of these I made about 2 years ago, I think, and it's a scrapbook. It's for Dargo, if you can tell by the D on it. I actually totally forgot that I made this, but over the weekend I happened to think of it, and I just felt really grateful that past me had made this. I've actually expanded its use a bit over the weekend since I've been going through so many other pictures and papers. For example, there's a little part right in the beginning where I now will hold the drawings that my niece has made of Dargo. I plan on doing something special with these eventually, maybe frame them or put them in a display, but until then my scrapbook is holding these paw prints, ink paw prints that Dove Lewis made for me, and I actually just received them in the mail this morning. And then I have a folder holding his adoption papers and a few pages of memories and pictures, which I'll show some of them over here while I'm talking. Yeah, so going through this has been really nice, and I'm very glad that I made it. I highly recommend scrapbooking in general, and especially when it's for your beloved furry friends. The last item I want to talk about is actually a blog. I made this blog a little over 3 years ago, and it was written in what I considered Dargo's voice, which I had decided a while back would be that of a proper Victorian era British gentleman. So the blog is written from his perspective in this voice and is just about our daily life. I'm going to post a link to the blog below just in case anyone is curious. There aren't a ton of posts, but there are a good deal of cute kitty pictures, so it's still worth checking out, I think. And I decided that I actually am going to wrap up this video by reading an abridged version of his first post, which was titled I Can Has Backstory, and then I'm going to go right into a little montage video that I made that sort of documents his life from where that post ended on. Right, well, I will switch now to I Can Has Backstory. Cat. To some, the word conjures images of the gold-adorned and statuesque spacette. To others, a hissing, black-coated symbol of ill luck. To you, I should consider some conglomerate portrait of Pop-Tarts, rainbows, and cheeseburgers in a fluffy purring basket to be more appropriate. I mean, you are actually reading the post on a cat blog, after all. I may not fit into any of those categories precisely, but indeed a cat is what I am. Greetings, my name is Dargo. As it is a quintessential affectation of my species, I prefer to keep much of my past shrouded in mystery. Suffice it to say that I ended a period of peripatetic living in May 2011 when I found myself at the Portland Humane Society. Frankly, I found life there rather dreary and tended to seek solitude amongst the cushions, which, as you can see, I hardly exaggerate when I call them macabre. Days turned to weeks, and I remained at the shelter, until at last, in early June, a stranger came to call on me. She introduced herself as Winks, and we proceeded to have an exceptionally enjoyable interview. So compatible were we, in fact, that forthwith upon meeting an agreement was struck, and together we did away to what would henceforth be our shared home. Despite the pleasantness of the affair as a whole, and the soothing words and head scratches provided by my companion along the way, I found traveling via plastic pet taxi and autobus a trifle overwhelming. Indeed, my nerves were left rather shaken by journey's end, and I entered the apartment with mild apprehension. Respecting this unease, Winks turned a blind eye as I hurriedly relocated myself beneath the futon. Some time later, my anxieties faded, and I cautiously emerged to study what had so suddenly become my new place of residence. To my delight, what I found was a comfortable home with an adequate array of napping spots and a housemate with a remarkable talent for pampering. Ours proved a wondrous and fast-growing friendship. In just 6 months' time, I had managed to rescue her from an enraged beast known commonly as the Wampa. She had gifted me with a new carrier, as sybaritic as it was practical, and we both had come to see in each other nothing less than a kindred spirit. Our lives were to be filled with various adventures in each other's company, it seemed. By year's end, I was afforded what was at that time in my life the most singular experience of aerial travel. We set down in St. Louis and motored an hour's way out to the country. There we spent nearly a fortnight celebrating the holidays at Winks's childhood home. For reasons beyond my comprehension, she had a curiously keen interest in the idea of us wearing matching Yuletide apparel during our stay. I was surely puzzled, but quite happy to oblige her after being afforded the chance to nap on her parents' most exquisitely comfortable sofa. It was then only another fortnight after our return that an entirely new adventure started. Moving, we packed up our tiny studio and drove to the opposite side of the city, where we would take residence in a considerably larger set of rooms with a third roommate, one Miss Curry by name. As I hadn't yet acquired much in the way of personal belongings that needed packing, and would decidedly be of little help with arranging furniture, I thought to do my part instead by packing myself and making introductions with the neighbors upon arrival at Borthwick Manor. Perhaps unsurprisingly, we've experienced a good number of singular events since our relocation, most notably of which, if I may say, was the arrival of our household's fourth member, Miss Y.T. In truth, I strongly objected to her presence when we first met in May of that year. No doubt this initial reaction grew mainly from the fact that I am 8 human years her senior, and thus lacking in the endless energy she, like so many youths, take for granted. However, over time, I came to know her better, and we grew to be friends. We even found that we had several shared interests in such fields as napping and waking those friends of ours, blessed with opposable thumbs, when it was time for our breakfast. Beyond Miss Y.T.'s arrival, I've been occupied with numerous events and activities over the past few months. Indeed, I'd kept busy with everything from assisting Winks in her art projects to testing out new catnip toys. In commemoration of my 9th birthday this past June, I was given my very first cat tower, a gift that has held myself and my attention a great deal since its arrival. And in August, my work to establish myself as a respectable freelance model paid off when a local art exhibit featured an entire wall of pieces bearing my likeness. Of course, one has to maintain some sense of balance, and with so much excitement this last year and a half, I found the only way to do so is through many tireless hours spent napping. Fortunately, that just so happens to be my favorite pastime and specialty. Indeed, as the illustrious René Descartes did say, "Somnus ergo sum." I sleep, therefore I am.